From the snow-capped peaks of the Pacific Northwest. Oh, hey everybody, that was just my sawdust pile. We're digging out this morning from about 1/8 of an inch of snow. Well, that's about 1/8 of an inch in the deepest parts. I've had some comments on some of my latest videos from guys suggesting the sawdust at my mill might be getting a little bit out of hand. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Oh, that's what you're talking about. So maybe I have a little bit of a problem keeping up with my sawdust sometimes. I don't think I'm at the point where I need an intervention, but you guys might want to keep an eye on me, just to be sure. You guys are right, this sawdust is getting out of hand. I need to clean up this mess. While I clean up this sawdust, I thought this would be a great opportunity to tell you some of the things I've learned from running my LT15 sawmill. I've been running this mill off and on for the last 2 years. More off than on. I have a lot of experience with working in the woods, but when it comes to the mill, I'm still a little bit of a noob. I should warn you, this video is not going to be so much about how to run a mill, it's going to be more about how to not run a mill. One of the first things I learned is your log stops must always be below your blade, because if they're not, bad things will happen. Now, one of the ways you'll know you hit a log stop is because you'll hear one of the most horrible noises you've ever heard. None of us like the sound of nails on a chalkboard, but nails on a chalkboard sounds like a beautiful symphony compared to the horrendous sound your blade will make when it hits a log stop. And I always wear earplugs when I'm running the mill. I hear it through earplugs. I can only imagine how horrible it sounds to someone who doesn't have ear protection. How do I know about this? I'll bring you in closer to give you a look at the carnage that has taken place here. Here's the first log stop. I've hit it here. I hit it here. I've mangled this wheel. Moving on to the next one. I've skimmed the top of this bolt. I didn't skim this washer. I actually cut it in two. Hit the wheel too. One little nick right there. The next log stop, I sliced into that one. Most of what I cut is in the 8 to 12 foot range. I'm using this part of the mill. Down here, these are all pristine. I haven't hit any of those yet, but we're still not done on the short side of the mill. I've skimmed the top off the log clamp twice, and the handle, I thought I hit the handle, but I don't see any marks on the handle. Maybe I haven't hit the handle. I've definitely thought about hitting the handle. I've heard it said there are two types of sawmill operators. The type who have hit their log stops and the type who are going to hit their log stops. I'm definitely in that first category. I did a YouTube short video a while back about this. Someone said in the comments there's a third type of person. The type of person who pays attention to what they're doing. I have a question for that guy. Out of all the time you're paying attention, do you ever have an occasional moment where you weren't paying attention when something happened? Have you ever made a mistake? Especially when learning something new. Before you answer that question, I'll say there's two types of people. The type who answer that kind of question honestly, and the type who don't. I'll leave it up to him to decide which one he wants to be. Most of these happened when I was learning how to run the mill and shoot video at the same time. Most of those never showed up on YouTube. Maybe back then I had enough sense to not want to share these kind of mistakes on YouTube. It was just a couple weeks ago I was thinking, I haven't hit my log stops in a long time. Maybe I finally learned how to pay attention and not hit my log stops. 2 days later, what did I do? I hit my log stop. Another thing I learned is nails in logs suck. If you hit a nail with your blade, bad things will happen. I agree with what Nathan from Out of the Woods says about that. If you ever catch someone hammering a nail into a tree, make sure you take that hammer away from them, throw it in the bushes or somewhere where they'll never find it again. I think that pretty much says it all right there. Another thing I learned, if you start making a cut, then decide to back out, don't do it. Not if your blade's still turning. Why? Because bad things will happen. If your blade's still turning, when you back up, your blade will come off the wheels, your teeth will slam into metal parts inside your saw head, and your blade will be pretty much hosed. And now you have another problem. Your blade's off the wheels, it's stuck in the log. Somehow you're going to have to get it untangled from the wheels, the saw head, and the log at the same time. Just don't do it. Same thing when you come to the end of the log. Make sure before you pull back, you raise your blade up above the log before you pull back. Otherwise, the same thing will happen. I can show you the scars from inside the housing from how I learned that, but I just don't think it's necessary. If there's anything good that might come from doing any of these things, the only thing I can think of is if there happens to be any bystanders around to witness it, they may have the opportunity to learn some interesting new swear word combinations. Which reminds me of another thing I learned. On this model, there's a hand crank that raises and lowers the saw head. What I learned is, make sure the pin is fully in the notch before you let go. If it's only partly in the notch or not fully in the notch, bad things will happen. If it's not fully in the notch and you let go, there's a good chance it'll come loose, start spinning around, your saw head will fall all the way to the ground, and this will spin really fast. Now if that happens, do not try to grab it, because you'll probably end up with a broken hand or a broken arm when it hits you. I haven't done that, but I have let go of it and it wasn't quite in. It came around and hit me, but that was before it got full momentum, and it really hurt for a long time. If you start making a cut and that comes loose and your saw head drops while you're in the middle of a cut, more bad things will happen. Your blade will be hosed and your log will be too. The blade will take a nosedive into your log and bad things will happen. I've got into the habit of when I put it in the notch, I jiggle it just a little bit just to make sure it's in there firmly. I did not mean for that to sound the way it may have sounded. That's looking much better. But what about this big pile of sawdust? Why is it here? Mostly because I just haven't wanted to move it. I don't really enjoy shoveling sawdust that much. Which reminds me of the other thing I learned about sawmills. If you just ignore the sawdust, it's not going to go away. It's going to accumulate. And eventually, it's going to cause problems. With this sawdust, I just push it down the hill a little bit, gets it out of the way, but it doesn't really go away. It's still there. If I had a bucket on the tractor, that would be helpful, but I don't have a bucket for the tractor. And if I did, it would probably be such a pain with that old tractor to swap from forks to bucket, then from bucket back to the log forks. I probably wouldn't actually do it. If a tractor company wanted to sponsor the channel so I could try out a tractor on the channel, that would be nice. But the chances of that happening on such a small channel, I don't even know if they make numbers that small. Thanks for hanging out with me today while I clean up some of this sawdust. On my other sawmill videos, you get to see the good side of the sawmill, which most of the time it is the good side. Most of the time things work just fine. But today you got to see the bad and the ugly. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you on the next video.